We're lucky enough to have Matt Gleason with us, who is a security engineer on the A16Z crypto team. Matt's one of those amazing people who can both uh, simultaneously make you feel massively paranoid about all the ways you're vulnerable and ways that people might be trying to attack you, but also tell you the ways that you can solve it and make yourself more secure. So, Matt, come on up.
So I'm Matt. I'm a security engineer. What that really means is I'm a quality assurance person, which is kind of less glamorous. I've worked with startups. I've worked with big companies. I've conducted hacks that you've probably, like the types of hacks you've heard about in the news. I've seen a lot of that. I've been doing this for a bit over a decade, and I've been doing it as a hobby for a bit over two. Previously, I'd done kind of a presentation explaining like who is after you and how, and like what are the high level things you can do to avoid it. And this is like criminal groups who are trying to sim swap you to make money, APTs who are trying to hack into your organizations to do like what they will, and then the high level APTs who chances are don't care about us unless we're like really high profile people. So for today's topics, I'm going to kind of take a step back and we're going to go into securing your accounts online. And what this means is basically how do you secure kind of your main account, which is your recovery account, the thing that like secures everything else? How do you secure accounts with that account? And then how do you diagnose whether or not your accounts are secure? What could go wrong? I think we're all aware of this. People get SIM swapped all the time. It's pretty regular. If I had to guess, for people in this room, right, in the next 6 to 8 months, one of you will probably get SIM swapped. That is just kind of like the rate at which we're seeing. So, in terms of high profile ones, we've obviously seen the SEC got hacked through a SIM swap, Vitalik got hacked through a SIM swap, and then recently OpenAI's newsroom got hacked, likely through a SIM swap. And so, like, these are ever present, they're constantly happening. It really kind of sucks. And if any of you were paying attention this morning and you have Verizon, you may have noticed the like sweet SOS symbol at the top of your phone, which indicates you lost cell service. And if you're really paranoid, what that means is you may have been SIM swapped. So like it's not fun. You're kind of looking at it. And so this morning I had to go through this process of like, one, do I care that much? Are my accounts secure? And then two, like, is it me or is it Verizon? The answer is Verizon. Let me take you through the theory of securing your accounts. So in theory, we really just secure authentication. So we secure like how we identify ourselves online. And the way we identify ourselves online typically is through login, which we're all very familiar with, forgot password, which we're a bit less familiar with, and then like the third weird backdoor, which is submitting a support ticket, which is in a sense submitting documentation and convincing someone to reset your account. In the grand scheme of things, I do want to like make this very clear. Telling someone to be secure is very easy for someone to do. Actually making a system that is easy to use and secure is pretty hard. And making it secure and recoverable, I think is more or less an impossible problem. You kind of see this with passkey, where they've made decisions on like where the passkeys are because they can make something easy and secure, but easy, secure, and recoverable is like that's a catch 22. When we're talking about authentication, we're talking about these three. So you have login, that's password, one-time password, which is like TOTP, time-based one-time password, it's authenticator, or them sending information on your phone. Password plus MFA, which is probably the most ubiquitous solution we see right now, and then passkey, which is becoming the more ubiquitous solution. Then you have automated recovery, which is the forgot password. Typically, they're going through email, phone number, or they're going to ask you some security questions or ask you for some backup code that they've provided or pre-negotiated. And then you have customer service recovery, again, filling out a form. Now, what is security and authentication? So to be very clear, normally when we measure authentication security, we're measuring it in something called entropy, or bits of entropy. And really what this boils down to is how long does it take to guess their way into an account you own? And so really we have a few levels of this for most people. For most people, it probably takes about a day to guess their way into their account. If you know enough about them, you like know how they're constructing passwords, it's probably going to take you a day just to like get there. For people who are secure enough for most things, it's going to take a few months, right? If it takes a few months, they're not going to bother, right? That's too long. For like generally secure people, you're really talking about timelines in the centuries, though this is kind of debatable. And then like crazy secure centuries and millennia. And sometimes you start talking about eons, to be honest. When we're looking at like online attacks, the amount of time it takes to guess a password is somewhere between minutes and millennia, depending on how complex your password is. If your password is a word and a few like numbers after it, that's minutes. If it's like 100 words, that's millennia, right? For general TOTP, so this is your Google Authenticator or specifically something sent to your phone, this will take on average months for them to get into. And this assumes, of course, they can guess once every 6 seconds ad infinitum. It takes, I think, 2 million guesses on average to kind of break into that account, which takes like 8 months. Now, if it's badly implemented and they don't have some rate control there, uh, it goes from months to like hours. Because you can send 2 million requests in like the period of hours. You just have to be able to do it. And then we have key based signing. So for key based stuff, so this is where crypto gets its authentication. Typically, on average, takes millennia. Really, if we're considering like quantum computing, that's probably in centuries right now. Um, and then if you have something insecurely generating keys, so this is like your parity wallet, then it's going to take between hours and days to kind of brute force your way into it, given you know how they did it. For offline, this changes only slightly, which is effectively passwords become much easier. TOTP doesn't exist offline. Like if you have the secret, you have the TOTP, doesn't matter. And key based stuff, that's all the same. So this brings us to like, once you have security kind of at the authentication layer, what are they actually looking at to attack the system that isn't guessing? And the answer is for password or password and TOTP, they're going to use phishing, right? They're either going to send you malware to your machine, get you to click it, get through all that, or they're going to send you a fake login form. And that fake login form will ask you for the information, and then they'll just log in as you, right? It's not very hard for them to do. Takes a few hours worth of effort, but most of us won't click that, right? The like average click through rate on phishing is probably in the low 1%, right? But then that brings us to their top, like the top thing they use, which is SIM swap. So SIM swap takes about the same amount of time. It takes a few hours of effort for them to prep a SIM swap and get it going, but it's 100% effective. Reason why is because they're sending money to like a T-Mobile or Verizon rep, and that rep is changing your SIM like internally to the system, right? There's nothing you can do about it, nothing uh, to save. It's just kind of a fact of the way the systems currently work. So that's massively effective. Doesn't take much effort, so good on them. Everything else, they're going to need to kind of get on your computer, which requires much more specialized phishing campaigns, much more specialized malware, and this like ups the amount of effort from hours to days. And it's still again a phishing campaign, so like most of us won't click that. So now let me go through a step-by-step process of me securing my own accounts. And I actually went through this process when prepping this presentation, just so I knew all the information is current. So for securing my email, right? This is like the first step is I need my recovery to be secure, so I need my email to be secure. I have a Gmail account. I need login and recovery to be secure. To be very clear, both of those, so they're important. And how secure? I just need it to be secure enough that no one's going to hack it. So how do I do that? So I have a few main options. I can use just a password, and I may be comfortable enough to do that, but most people aren't. You can use password and TOTP. So this is Google Authenticator. Password and passkey, which seems a bit excessive, honestly. And then passkey, which again, as secure as anything will be. For just a password, obviously, theoretically, it is secure enough. Like you can make a password that's good enough and it'll always work. But that's in theory, not in practice. In practice, most people's password security is really bad. The amount of entropy in your average password for your average person's probably in like the single or low double digits, which is effectively like a few days to brute force your password. They can be stolen via phishing. They can just go through and like attack you very normally in weaponized patterns that they've put together and have been there forever. Now, for password TOTP, the only boon I get is minimum entropy goes up, right? no matter what my password is, it's probably going to take you months to get in as long as the TOTP system isn't broken. And this is nice. The other thing that's nice for me is Google stops bothering me. They stop bringing me the prompt saying, hey, you should enable two factor because you're not secure otherwise, which doesn't mean I'm not secure. It just means they don't know whether or not I'm secure, right? They can't guarantee it. So they get nervous. Can still be stolen. Phishing still works against this. It doesn't have any resilience against those types of systems or those types of attacks. Now, password and passkey, it's an option. It's way less simple. It's way easier to lose. I have lost passkeys. I just shipped myself a new one because I literally lost one traveling like 3 weeks ago. And so, like, I have two, luckily. But if this were my only way to log in, literally, I would have lost access to my account or lost access to the ability to log in unless I recovered it. So nice, but really easy to lose. Passkey, real simple, real nice, great in every way, but most implementations are going to basically spread my passkey around. So if I have an iPhone and I'm using passkey, it's inside my iCloud password vault. And so like now my iCloud can log into my Gmail, and so I have to secure my iCloud as well. And my aim here is to secure one thing, to secure everything else. So what's my initial choice? Honestly, I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to buy new stuff. So I just use password and TOTP, and I did this for a very, very long time. TOTP is easy. I put it on my phone. We're good to go. Not dependent on my iCloud account, kind of like as I explained throughout this process. Now, that brings me to like the actual headache. So login's easy. Recovery is not. So how do you recover a Gmail account? The ways I know of doing it, and this may not be an exhaustive list, is they will ask you for other authentication methods you have on the account. So like if you have a bunch enrolled, guess what? A few of those are getting chosen. They'll use those, recover your account with them. The other thing is you can specify a recovery email and a phone number, which would be nice, but like, wait, I have an email to recover other things. Do I need another email to recover my own email? Like, then what recovers that, right? Like you get into this weird cyclical loop where you're sitting there going like, wait. I just want a root of trust, not more complexity in my system. And then you have the other thing that Google offers, which is advanced protection, which has a few less features, but a lot more secure in terms of configuration. So enrolled methods, obviously easy, super nice, super convenient. Backup codes work, SMS works, everything works, but bad things, SMS works. This is likely how you will get your Gmail stolen if it gets stolen. Literally this. So like if you go into your Gmail account and you have two like backup codes and SMS enrolled in the account, like if they want to steal your account, that is how they'll do it. So like kind of dangerous. For email and phone number, obviously phone number we can't really depend on because of SIM swapping. And the email exhibits this weird chicken egg problem where like it's cyclical to itself. And so like, do I sign the email itself to recover itself? Because that seems kind of weird and prone to failure. Lastly, advanced protection. It is highly secure. It comes with a lot of cons. Most of them are you can only use login through password passkey, which means it's easier to lose. It requires hardware passkeys. It requires you have a password. It requires you still have an email for recovery, which again, I've been trying to get around. And it's easy to get it locked out, and certain features are limited. So again, what did I end up choosing? I just went with recovery via email because honestly, I'm never gonna have to use it. So I recover, I set my phone number, which doesn't matter. I set my own email, which means like you have to have access to machine I own to recover my account, which seems pretty cool. Now, this brings me to this a little weird time. So in the last year, hacking via video games has become a very big thing. And I have three machines that are logged into my Gmail account. I have my laptop, my phone, and my gaming rig. And the issue is, do I trust my gaming rig? The answer is anymore, not at all, right? You can ship malware to that thing. It auto updates everything. It doesn't care. So like I was real worried for a while, like, hey, if they want this account, how do they get it? Through this random game I've downloaded, which would suck. So what I ended up doing at the end of the day, honestly, is setting into the advanced protection. And this is only because I have this liability, but I want my gaming rig to have my email, period. But I just don't want to worry about it. So you set it up. It kind of sucks in terms of how the login works. It is secure, but feature-wise, a bit restricted. Just to recap, what we're aiming for here is secure enough, right? We're not aiming for maximal security. That is a trap. You just want to be secure enough that no one's going to hack you. That's the baseline. That's where you need to be. If you are worried, enhance it, right? There's no reason for you to be like, hey, like, I don't know if I'm secure enough. Like, all right, just amp it up, right? Like, it's easy to do. Because most of this, honestly, is a peace of mind exercise. So after I've secured my email, I now have a way of securing everything else. Because again, as we explained, recovery oftentimes uses email to secure things. So let me just kind of run you through what these end up looking like for other systems. And the reason I'm running through these is because these are systems that tend to get hacked. So securing everything else. We all know you should probably secure Discord. Why do you secure Discord? Because it's the way you communicate with people, way you communicate with customers. A lot of us do business on it, right? You kind of need to. And what do you need? Password TOTP is enough. Obviously, they have passkey. They have other things if you want. But the most important thing is Discord only recovers via email, period. As long as that is how you have it set up. And you need to make sure that is how you have it set up. Now, you can also recover or require this from mods. So if you're like a server owner or you're a server mod, you can basically say, hey, other mods or the mods I have need to have these protections because I want to make sure that they're not going to get hacked, and then reset my server and then, post a bunch of phishing links or like misrepresent me. Next, AWS. AWS is real hard to secure. AWS login, again, secure enough's fine. Password TOTP is fine. Passkey if you want. Recovery is email and phone. Always email and phone. You have to enroll both. They'll call or text you, and then they'll give you a link in an email. You have to click it. That's how you recover the account. There's no optionality. It is how it works for corporate accounts. It's how it works for everything. This is kind of like what you need set up. If you have like just a password on stuff, might be fine. But like, again, this is one of those things where set up your secure email, set your secure email to be the recovery on this account, and then you have to worry less. Next, we discussed Twitter or X. This is very, very difficult. One reason is because recovery is kind of email, but kind of not. And why? It goes into more of a story. So I have a Twitter account. I have actually multiple now, but mostly for testing. I use password and TOTP for my Twitter accounts because it's easy and corporate policy. I use my secure email to recover them. However, you can have configurations that kind of backdoor your own account, not on purpose, but because that's the way Twitter works. Again, recovery is non-standard in a lot of places. In X, Twitter, it's very non-standard, but it oftentimes allows you to use your phone number to reset it unilaterally, right? So what that means, you get SIM swapped, your Twitter's gone, right? We know this from Vitalik, we know this from the SEC, we know this from basically every major SIM swap we hear about. So the question in my mind, and the question in a lot of our minds, is what actually causes this, and like what can we do to work around it? So while I was testing, I was resetting my password. But what I'd actually done is I'd reassigned my phone number onto the account to see, hey, what happens? And the answer was I reset the password and it would only allow me to use my email. And I was like, wait, that's weird. I have the phone number on it. Like, why can't I reset via phone number? So what I did is I enrolled a new account. I enrolled a phone number, I enrolled a slightly different email, but mostly the same email. And then I checked, and all of a sudden, I could reset via my phone number. And like, why? Right? Literally, I have an email and phone number. The phone number is literally the same phone number on both accounts. The only difference between the account is I had TOTP on my main account and not on the new account. And so, sure enough, as I was testing, currently, as it stands, and this is like as of a week or two ago, and probably didn't take place until a month or two ago, if you have TOTP, you're fine. Literally, Twitter just disables SMS recovery if you have TOTP. That hasn't always been the case. We know that hasn't always been the case. And so let me kind of explain the process of like how you can tell yourself and how you can test it yourself. So when you go to an account, like open an incognito window, just go in, enter all the information you have on yourself that's not secret. If it prompts you for something through a phone, just go through that prompt and then see if you can recover your account or not. And in this case, like you say forgot password, you enter your stuff. And if we remember, like if it asks me for this, I click phone number, sends me the phone number, I reset the account, it's reset. But if you're secure, you meet this and it asks you for the email. And once it's asking you for a code via email, chances are like they're never getting that because they should never get access to that account because we set it up securely. So, how do we actually fix this unilaterally? So, Twitter, this is a unique case. And in fact, this is a case I wouldn't even trust, mainly because, as Tim Bako said, you could have TOTP for a long time on Twitter, and at no point would it disable or SMS recovery. And so, what you actually had to do for the longest time, and what you probably should still be doing, is delete the phone number off the account, right? Now, do you need to do it right now? Probably not. Just enable TOTP, you're probably fine. But for peace of mind long term, you probably just want to remove it. The other one is when they give you the option, adding pins or recovery keys to accounts works very, very well. It works outstandingly well. And I'll kind of show that shortly. And then the last thing is you always need to kind of like, when you make a configuration change in your account, check to make sure that it didn't go weird. Because in certain circumstances, you're going to be sitting there going like, oh, hey, I made a slight change. This should do nothing to my recovery. And the answer is it does. Because again, recovery is taking everything from your account. It's taking things you don't know about. It's just doing stuff behind the scenes that none of us are privy to. Let's kind of go through more services. So for Telegram, Telegram does have SMS recovery, right? Normally. But if you have a secured Telegram account, here's the flow you should see. You start the recovery, you enter a phone number, it sends you the code, you enter the code. Then it'll ask you, like, hey, what's the password? And the answer is, oh, wait, like, I don't have the password. So I hit recover, like, forgot it. And then it says, oh, I sent it to your email. And then you say, wait, but I can't do that. And it basically says, well, sucks to be you. You can't recover the account, which is exactly what we want to see. Next is iCloud. This one's way more important than I think we realize. If you're an iPhone user and you use passkey, if your iCloud isn't secure, they're going to steal it. iCloud right now in default configuration, they can just like, hey, I want to recover it via SMS. Thanks. Here's your account. And then if they can guess your PIN number, right? Any PIN on any device you own, any of them, including your Apple TV, including your Vision Pro, including like these tiny devices where you have like 55555 set, like they'll get your passkey. So if you use passkey on an iCloud device, you need to do this. So when you go through the steps to try to recover your iCloud account, you'll go through. It'll ask you, "Hey, submit your email, submit your phone number. We sent you something in your phone. Like we sent you a code on your phone number. Enter that code, and it should say, please enter the recovery key." And if you say, "I don't have the recovery key," it says you can't recover the account. That's literally all it should say. So this one's easy. You just go enable the recovery key. It's in iCloud settings. Like it's not too bad to do. You just have to be considerate when you're doing it. So what other accounts should you secure? You want to secure your email. Obviously, we went over that. You want to secure your social media. Twitter was a big example of this, but Facebook, Instagram, all of them. They should all have the same profile. They should all have secured recovery. You actually also want to secure your cloud storage. As weird as it is to say, cloud storage is what they will go after if they can. Main reason, you store a bunch of pictures there. You store a bunch of random stuff there. Like you might have a seed phrase there. You might have backup codes there. You might have things that get them into other accounts. Like it is a treasure trove of information. They'll kind of take it as much as they can. And then lastly, their final target is usually financials. So Coinbase account, Kraken account, your actual banks as well, right? Your normal fiat banks. These are all things they'll try to get into. And when they get into, they'll try to take your money, right? There's a reason Zelle has a credit limit or a limit on how much you can send. It's largely because This is how they're transferring money out via normal banks. Fair warning, when you go through this process, if you're going to go through this process, you will find some of your services are not securable, right? I had a bank and I was like, hey, bank, you have a lot of my money, but like I'd like to recover it. And they're like, yeah, you can use SMS. It's like, wait, can I disable that? They're like, nope. And so like for the longest time, I had a bank account where if you SIM swap me, you own my bank account, period. I have no retribution. I have no way to configure it out. And so what did I have to do? I had to switch banks, which kind of sucks. But like this is the reality of everything, right? Like you'll meet some services that do not do recovery well in a way that like you're comfortable with. And at that point, like you either stop using it or you just accept the risk that that puts on your life, like your livelihood. So this was all mostly simple stuff. Now I get to do the stuff I like, which is like the real advanced stuff. What makes accounts hard to access? We already went over good passwords or good login, good recovery key. Then there's also a few other little things we're going to go over. It's the frequency at which you check things. The reason for this is the CSR recovery path exists. So you have to know or recognize when your account has been compromised through that path if it gets compromised. The other thing is using hardened phones and devices. So most of our phones are okay, but we can harden them pretty well. And when we harden them, like we become infinitely, well, not infinitely, much harder to access. Not using random wireless and then not responding to inbounds. So if someone sends you text saying like, oh, hey, I'm from Coinbase and I'd like to discuss with you like this transfer I saw in your account, do not engage, right? If you think it may be genuine, you basically say, give me a support ticket number, and then you find the support line for Coinbase or the support email, and you send through that channel, right? Now, what makes devices hard to access? So when we're thinking about device access, we're thinking about how much it costs to get onto your device. For your average laptop, it's actually pretty cheap to get on the device. It's like send a bunch of malware, find a vulnerability, connect to it, plug in a device to your computer, like just do something to your stuff. You can get in decently easy for a cost that's not too high. For phones, it's much more costly, but much more accessible, if that makes sense. Your phone ingests a lot of data. If, say, someone pays $1 million for an iCloud or iMessage exploit, they will get on your phone, period. It's just how much do I need to pay to get on this person's phone? Okay, it's that much. Okay, I'm on their phone. Done. Hardened phones are a bit harder. So Apple and Google have kind of locked down phones from pathways that are oftentimes vulnerable to stuff. This is called lockdown mode on phones. And when you have that enabled, you are severely restricted for feature set. Like you won't see half of the images on the internet, but it also means your images aren't loading in the kernel and able to get hacked to just own your phone like, 1, 2. And then the last one is a hardened laptop or a hardened device. And this is one separate from a phone. This is where like you take the phone level hardening and you like remove all the radios and remove all the stuff. How do you harden your phone? There's only a few things you need to do. One, set a good passcode. So you go, you say, set alphanumeric passcode. The reason you do this is because your phone has full disk encryption on it, and uses that passcode for full disk encryption. The most likely way you are going to get got is they're going to steal your phone, right? And they might have your PIN, or they'll be able to guess your PIN. They'll get onto the phone and they'll get all the data on it. If you have a really long alphanumeric password, that guessing attack or that like process is impossible, reasonably impossible. Like they'd have to coerce you or like see what you were doing. Lockdown mode is obviously there. Updating your device, everyone knows this. Uninstall messengers, emails, clients, anything that inbounds data to you, as much as you can uninstall it. That makes you safer. And then turn off your phone if you're in a vulnerable place. So like if you're, say, for example, going through customs in a kind of weird country and you have your phone on it and might have your crypto wallets on it, and you have a really complex alphanumeric password, power down your phone. It's going to be impossible for them to get the data on that phone because it's encrypted. Next, we have hardened devices. So this gets a little bit more complex. So if you want a hardened device, you get to do a bunch of very weird things. You get to basically head into a Best Buy, randomly select a laptop, grab that laptop specifically. The reason you're doing this is because of supply chain attacks. And I think we've all heard recently examples of supply chain attacks. Then you go to a weird connection place. So this is like a coffee shop, a library, something. You connect via Tor. You install a hardened OS. This is typically Tails or Cubes, and then you like don't use any peripherals. Don't even use keyboard. Don't use a mouse. Don't use anything. You just use what's on the laptop. You go into it. You disconnect all the radios. You set a full disk encryption password, and you're the most paranoid person on the planet. The reason you would ever do this is because if you're storing highly sensitive information and you need to be safe from literal nation states, that is the only way to do it, right? So, for example, hypothetically, if there were a big nation state that was concentrated on attacking crypto and doing it through getting on people's phones, then you might want to consider going through the process of creating a secure device or hardened device that is just significantly harder to get on, regardless of where they are and regardless of where you're traveling. So, like, that's kind of my spiel. That's the stuff I like. So, I included it. But now I'm going to go over some very high level frequently asked questions just so I avoid them in Q&A. Why so little on passwords? Passwords are hard. I hate passwords. They're nice for very specific reasons, and that is full disk encryption for devices. Other than that, passwords kind of suck. As much as you can get away from them, it's nice. Use a vault if you need to. There's 3 of them. So I have a really crazy master password in LastPass. When LastPass was hacked and all the vaults were leaked, I changed 0 passwords. The reason? Because that password will take them probably on like mega GPU rigs. I would guess conservatively an Eon. So like I'm fine. It's good. But my password also looks like a seed phrase, right? Like, when you get a seed phrase and it's 12 words, that's my password. So it's a little paranoid. You don't always have to do that, but like just keep that in mind. Now, TOTP, where do you store these codes? Or where do you store the backups? So it's easy enough. If you print it, it's fine. No one's going into your house typically. Or if you have a second phone, just back it up on the second phone. You typically only need one backup. You'll probably be fine. We have the recovery path for a reason. You can just recover through it. What about my company email? This is a lot more complex. For companies, recovery is other people. You don't typically recover your email through like a standard recovery path. You ask an admin or another admin on your account to reset your email. Everyone who can do that has to be secure enough so you feel confident that they're good. The other things to keep in mind is email is based on DNS. So if you have a crappy DNS registrar, if you have a crappy DNS provider, or if your email provider is kind of suspect, all of these things are liabilities, right? Hate to tell you, namecheap.com, not a great registrar in terms of like the security we've seen on these accounts normally. So if you have your main email account and it's like companyname.com or companyname.io, you can transfer it, and you should probably transfer it to, let's say, Cloudflare, Amazon, Google. Next, what about my wallets? Again, managing secrets is hard. I prefer to use the strategy of separate your money out. It's hard to steal all of it if it's in separate places. Also, be cognizant of how much money you can keep in a device, right? How much can you keep in a laptop? Probably about 100K. How much can you keep in your phone? Probably under $1 million. How much can you keep on a hardened device? A lot, right? This is like the rule of thumb. Code audits. When do I get code audits? The answer is if you are kind of directing funds or doing anything with customer funds, any major change, get an audit, period. Like non-negotiable, it needs to happen. If there are no funds, you just abide by norms of the space. Like not having audits isn't the end of the world. Getting hacked kind of is though. So like you want to feel good about it. You want to feel confident that you're not going to just get like the rug pulled from under you because of something like small mistakes that you made. Auditor rep is key here. It's all word of mouth. So if you want to know who the good auditors are, ask around, right? Go look at the protocols or the software that is similar to yours. Use the same auditors. They'll probably do an okay job. If someone's getting memed on Twitter all the time, like, Certic, maybe don't use them, right? So that's the end of my spiel. And now we're on to questions. We have some queued up in the tank. So let's go.
Yeah, so one very weird incident that happened recently to me was I was using Telegram for my previous phone number. I switched the phone number, And I did not realize that I switched a Telegram account with the new number, but then I logged into my Telegram using the phone number and I logged into somebody else's account. And I was able to see everything. And then I could delete their account so that I could open my account from this. So I'm not sure like if like Telegram allows you to just delete by phones and if you could just secure it by email. Also, another question, completely unrelated, is there any phone provider that you would recommend that is not susceptible to SIM swapping?
So the ones that are most resilient right now are the ones with the worst support, or the ones that are intentionally trying to keep you from getting SIM swaps. So this is like Google Fi, because Google Fi is real hard to get a hold of, and so like that also makes it hard for the hackers to do it. And then uh, things like Afani, which are like these more hardened carriers. Now, if you're to rank the major carriers, right? AT&T, Verizon do surprisingly well. T-Mobile is like the worst. Period. Like if you are on T-Mobile, your likelihood of SIM swapping goes up like a lot more than you'd expect. But this doesn't mean everyone's immune. And specifically, a lot of this is SIM swaps aren't the only way to get in. It's just a step on the path. So typically they'll have been targeting you already. So like when we're talking about like how long or how much time they're spending doing things, like your average like I'm hacking this one person probably takes them several hours to prepare, several hours to kind of go through, and it usually stems from I have evidence they either have money here or I have extra information on them through some other leak. So sometimes you'll see like I had, well, we've had cases where effectively like Gmail accounts have been stolen. And the way those were stolen was the backup codes ended up getting leaked at some point. And then what happened is they realized the only other thing they needed was SMS. So they verified that first. Then they SIM swapped, stole the email, and used the email to steal everything else. Right. And like that's kind of what they're dealing with. Like it's real people on the other end trying to make money by being as nefarious as possible. Like the other thing to kind of evidence how nefarious this is almost all SIM swaps are during like solely American holidays against Americans. So Thanksgiving is real common. The Super Bowl is real common. In fact, I've had every one of these ruined by like, hey, someone has been SIM swapped, because it's a time they know you're not paying attention. It's a time they know like I can target this guy. But yeah, to get back to kind of the Telegram thing, plugging random SIMs into devices and doing some of that other stuff gets weird. Your iCloud account will do the same thing. So if you plug in a SIM like internationally to your phone, or you like enroll in a foreign eSIM, it will enroll that phone number onto your iCloud account. And what that means is then when you relinquish that number, if someone gets it and goes, hey, I want to enroll this, they're already enrolled as you. And then you have the Telegram problem, which is like, now they own my account. What am I going to do? Right. And they can't ask for it deleted. Right. Like that is a process, but like, yeah. Anyway.
For email, do you tend to use an email for all your accounts that is maybe not a public email that you normally use for other things? Like, do you like have a account management email?
So I have some for weirder accounts, but generally, no. Like I've constructed things in a way that like you can know the email, you can know my phone number, you can know all these things about me, and you're very unlikely to get in. And like that's the certainty I want. I don't want security through obscurity, which is like, oh, I hid the email, because emails get leaked a lot. Data gets leaked a lot. Like they know everything about you because like your social security number has been in like 18 breaches. And so you do it when it's convenient, but I don't think it's a good method of like long-term security, because you're going to need to change things a lot.
Okay. For banks, you can like tell them for the credit reporting agencies, you can basically say you can't pull a credit report.
Yep, all mine are frozen.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be something similar for Sims? Like why can't the carriers say this, this thing is kind of more locked down?
So
in a
they
more strict way?
they do SIM pins. So like AT&T and Verizon do it, and it is a little bit harder, but the most common path of SIM swaps is to have a customer service rep do it directly through bribery. So like they whether or not you know the SIM or you answer the SIM doesn't really matter, right? Because like when it's someone on the back end who's pretending, well, who works at a store, who's in a store, who's just typing that like, hey, this customer came in, I identified them, and now I'm setting their phone to this new phone that they bought. Like that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's like impossible to adjust for as long as the requirement is for those companies is that you be able to get your phone number back.
Okay. Yeah. And last one, I had Fee for many years, Google Fi, and never had the issue. And I'm on Mint now, and Mint also doesn't have in-person stores. So is generally the ones that don't have in-person stores then, ones that have a little bit more security?
I mean, yes, they have less ways in. So again, when the model is I find an employee of your company, I message them on Reddit or Twitter or wherever they've identified themselves, and I tell them, "Hey, would you like to make $800?" And then I send them it, and then they do the thing I want them to do. Um, the smaller companies all work better, right? Any company without support, traditional, tends to be a bit better. But again, this depends on a lot of stuff, and like there are other ways to skin the cat, which gets kind of weird when you're talking about SMS as recovery. If I'm in proximity of you and you're on a carrier where I can like downgrade certain types of connections, I can read your SMS without SIM swapping you, right? And so like there are ways to get around that. They just don't do it because it's like it costs more money, more time, and it's way more complex. But like it's still kind of at odds with being able to secure it.
So it sounds like the biggest problem with YubiKey is just easy to lose. Are you aware of any kind of like implantable YubiKeys? Things
Well,
like that?
passkey is transferable. So if you're not familiar, um, like YubiKey runs on the FIDO2 spec, which we colloquially, well, I'm not sure of this, but colloquially we call it like what the negotiation it does through WebAuthn passkey, right? And your Apple passkey is tied to your iCloud account. It's stored in your iCloud uh, like credential store. And so we do have transferable versions. It just introduces iCloud as a liability. Now, if you secure your iCloud, then that's fine, right? And iCloud generally is secure for login. It's just recovery that's like the loose end. And once you set the recovery key, you've effectively disabled recovery for anyone who doesn't know that key. And so you can do it. It's just a lot more complexity to introduce in the system. Though, again, I do it. So, like, for certain account logins, I will just use passkey because it's like uber convenient. And it's really nice to just be able to hold my phone up to a QR code and my phone to be able to authenticate me. And so, passkey is, I think, what you're talking about.
But I guess my question is for just a standard YubiKey, if you want a physical device, the issue there is potentially losing it. You know of any ways to prevent loss, such as implants or
Oh,
or necklaces or whatever? Like maybe you just solve that pain point.
I mean, you tend to lose your keys less, so attaching them to keys tends to work well. Like implants are semi-permanent and kind of a pain, but if you can have them, that's cool. Uh, we will change cryptographic algorithms for signing in the next 10 years. So your implant is going to be active for probably 5 to 10, and then like it gets nuked from orbit. But like, I don't know, like it's up to the reader how to solve that problem. If you know of a good way to solve it, and like you wear a watch all the time and you can attach it to your watch, that's cool. But in general, like I think people just like I tend to lose it, and so I think generally people tend to lose it. So sorry if that's not satisfying.
Yeah, if I may add a few things, there is a
Now, a passkey that is like that small and you can always keep it in your laptop, I think that's pretty.
Yeah, mine's in my laptop.
Yeah. You lose those.
Huh?
You lose those.
No, that's the one I haven't lost. I lost my bigger one. So I had a bigger one connected to a set of keys. And as I was traveling, I think I just dropped it. I do set pins on my passkeys, so like doesn't matter.
Stupid question. Is that a good startup idea to do like a harden, just a SIM carrier for your authentication?
A hardened SIM card.
Yeah, the kind of that doesn't allow you to do easy. Wouldn't allow you easily to do SIM jacking.
That is
SIM swapping.
that is what Efani and those guys do.
Which one?
Efani.
Okay.
So there are a few carriers attempting to do that. The difficulties they always encounter is these more esoteric attacks. So even if you're on Efani, you're typically still you're on a specific carrier still, and you're subject to their configuration settings. And so most like Mint and Google Fi are, I believe, is it MVNO of T-Mobile? And so the T-Mobile configuration is what they inherit. And so if you're in a situation where like you're using that and they still want to get you, T-Mobile can be downgraded. You can downgrade it proximity, and then you can still get that information. So it solves a problem, but it doesn't solve most of the problem, which is phone is not a good way to identify you.
You didn't mention about hardware wallets for securing crypto. Do you have any opinion on those?
So ultimately, the security of a hardware wallet mostly depends on what you're plugging it into. So if I have a hardware wallet and I want to make a transaction, that transaction is sent by a laptop into the wallet, typically. So if they own the laptop, what keeps them from trying to change the transaction from out from under you?
Maybe because you signed the transaction on the hardware wallet, but
Well, right, but what you're signing is sent by the laptop. And so it doesn't end up solving some central problems, which are how do I verify what I am signing is what I want to do? And that's typically what the attacks you'll see against hardware wallets are. And they will prompt you and you can check them. But like, how often do you do that? Right? How often do you go through every bit and check it? Because like what they end up doing is they end up looking at the address you're using for transfers, cloning the first, like brute forcing out the first 4 or 5 characters to imitate you. And then you realize like, oh, I transferred it to the wrong place, right? Like they're going to get around the efficacy of a hardware wallet, not because it's a hardware wallet, because of the way we use hardware wallets. And so you'd be better off spending the time and money securing a laptop and then being able to like trust that laptop not to send you bad data for signing, right? As opposed to like having a laptop that may be compromised that then sends bad data to your hardware wallet that you sign because it's very hard to verify.
I wonder what is your opinion on Graphene OS? Like, does it make us like significantly more safer?
Yeah, so when you're talking about hardened devices that are Android, Graphene is kind of the go-to right now. So it disables a lot of features. It gives you configurability. So it's basically like you can secure Arch more than you can secure macOS, because macOS doesn't leave a lot of things for you to configure versus like Arch is like, I have all the package managers and all of everything. So Graphene is, I believe, considered right now to be the secure version of Android OS, absent running it on like a Pixel where you trust Google to be able to like update it fairly readily. Hopefully that makes sense. And for all of you who are not familiar, Graphene OS is like an open source hardened version of Android that you can install onto Android devices to kind of like feel good about yourself and to honestly be a bit more secure. You do typically have to root the device. So like the device is going to warn you. It's going to say, hey, this device has been rooted, which is kind of a bummer. And Graphene's in kind of a headbutt match with Google because of it. But rooting your phone, it does not make it insecure. If you rooted your phone to install a more hardened OS on it, your phone is probably more secure at that point. All right. Well, thank you guys, and I hope you have a good day.